Welcome back to what I am calling my living tips. And I'm doing this little series on purpose in life and how to find your purpose, something that I certainly struggled with for a large part of my life, and I know other people do. So hopefully this gives you some insight, at least into what I discovered on this path. Now, in the last video I did, I went over some points that I discovered about life, and that is that life is the action of putting energy into your purpose. And that's actually, you feel like you're living, you feel like you're alive when you do that. And if you recall, I talked about living versus existing, and existing means you're just sort of standing there, nothing's really happening. Living, you feel alive, you feel energized, you're excited, you feel like you're doing something, you're fulfilling some purpose in your life. And then the formula for living was putting my energy into my purposes, and that made me feel like I was living. So I gave you some exercises, which were to pick out 10 of the best days of your life and 10 of the worst days of your life. Take a look at those. Or another way to look at that is 10 days you really felt alive, or 10 days that you really felt dead. You can do 3, you can do 30. I don't care how many you do. The point is that what I wanted to do was I wanted to start to take ownership and direction in my life. And I share this so much because I see this point happens to practically everybody that I know. And that is we become socialized when we're little kids, we grow up and the authorities around us are telling us what to do. And we become very accustomed to having a senior authority tell us what to do in our life. And there comes a point, usually when we're teenagers, that we want to do what we want to do. And that's when you have the whole teenager problem with parents, because they don't want to follow the authority of their parents anymore. And then there's situations in school where kids don't want to necessarily do what the teachers are saying, and there's problems there. And it's a lot of this is not that we're all disobedient as children, or that as parents we can't run the proper control. It's that we're trying to put energy into our purposes. That's what we're actually trying to do. And we have people that are trying to get us to put in energy into purposes that we don't have. And we object to putting energy into purposes that we don't have because we feel dead. It doesn't make us feel alive. We don't have any purpose to put energy into that. And you look at the way our education system works, and again, I'm not saying it's horrible, but I'm saying there's something good and something bad. And part of it is that there's this curriculum that every child has to learn. Nobody asks the child if they're interested in learning it. And if you want to ruin education, make people learn things they're not interested in because they have no purpose of learning it. And then learning becomes something they don't want to do. I digress on this, okay? But the whole idea here is that in feeling alive, we need to identify those things in our life that are our purposes and put energy into those so that we're achieving those things we want to do in our life. Now, that's a good lesson to start. And when I did that, I came up with a whole series of times when I was skiing or I was sailing. There was a specific time off the south coast of Ireland. I was sitting up in the spreaders on the sailboat, and I saw about a 12-foot shark swim out by the boat. Nobody else could see it. And I felt so incredible at peace and alive at that time. There were times, so many times when I was canoeing someplace or where I was sailing to Catalina. I was flying my airplanes when I used to fly a lot. I felt in control. I felt happy. I felt very alive. And I said, what were the component parts of that made me feel alive? And I started to drill those down. And a lot of it was that I was in charge of a game. I was competent at doing something. I was able to make my own decisions. There was a situation that had action and adventure to it. And I realized that I like games that I can actually feel the benefit from playing. And I like to do things in life that I can actually have some control over, and I'm not just a cog in a wheel. And I also like to have things that are a little exciting. One of the things I learned when I looked at the worst days of my life were sitting in a cubicle in a Fortune 50 company doing marketing reports. And I couldn't imagine that's what my life was going to be. And I realized I don't do well in a cubicle. Hey, don't put me in a cubicle. I want to be someplace that there's a lot of action, that I can control situations, that I can have input on them, not necessarily control them, but I want to make have input on what I'm doing. I can use my talents. I can feel the satisfaction and the sense of accomplishment for having accomplished something. I can coordinate and be a player versus a spectator or a pawn in the game of life. Those were the things I started to realize about myself. That's where I thrived. That's where I did well. Now, there were some problems with that, was that I wasn't, a lot of those things that when I looked at my purposes, I wasn't able to earn money doing a lot of that stuff. So there was more to this game of purpose, because that didn't totally sort it out for me. So I went back to my dictionary and said, let's look at the word purpose. Where's it come from? Well, it actually comes from, I think it was a French word that comes from propose. So it's what we propose. Now let's look at just quickly the definition of propose. It means to put something there. We have the word pro, which means to, in a positive fashion, to move something forward, or it's a positive component, and the word pose, which is to put there or to place. So we're positively placing something there, is what propose means. So in understanding that, our purpose is not something on the horizon. Our purpose is not something that some guru tells us on a mountaintop. Our purpose is something that we propose to do. Our purpose is what we decide to do. It's right here on the end of our nose. That's where it is. I see all these people looking on the horizon for their purpose, and it's right there on the end of their nose. So I had to look at what things did I propose? What did I want? So I'm going to ask you this. Do you have the purpose of earning enough money to sustain yourself? Yeah. Do you have the purpose of having a good family? Do you have the purpose of staying in shape and being healthy? Do you have the purpose of having good friends and around and having fun time? Do you have the purpose of having a nice place to live and a comfortable surroundings, or a place that's aesthetically pleasing and it works properly? All those are purposes. But what happens in life is we have those purposes, but I'm going to come back to these authorities over here. This is actually getting on another whole email I want to do, but these authorities telling us we need a different purpose, and we wind up invalidating our purposes and feeling we don't have a purpose. I have a place to live, instead of I have a purpose having a place to live. I have a purpose of being healthy and being in shape. I have a purpose of listening to beautiful music. That is actually a purpose I have. And list out those things that you desire in life, and those are purposes. Those are the things that you propose. And then the next thing I'm going to go through is you got to now put your energy into them. As an example, I had a friend of mine who had the purpose of going to Italy for years. She wanted to go to Italy. It was a dream. She's going to Italy. Never did it for years. And finally, she decided, she didn't know how she was going to do it. She didn't know what she was going to do, but she started planning a trip to Italy. And then she started putting money behind the little trip to Italy. And she wound up going to Italy for 3 weeks and had the time of her life. And she was absolutely thrilled on all the things she was doing. And she started to put her energy into that purpose. And she became very alive, very excited about it, something she always wanted to do. Now she did it. She'd love to go back, but there's other things. But she has a sense of accomplishment. She's feeling like she's living her life now because she went to Italy. So the essence of finding your purposes in life is propose what you want. And I'm going to come back to this. We don't have a purpose. We have many purposes. And I'm going to continue on this, on how to align those different purposes. We have senior purposes and junior purposes and subordinate purposes. And we have to figure out which are the most important, and how do we move those things forward and align them to put energy into the right things, that everything aligns. But for right now, purpose means it's what you propose. And we can even use the word propose. If you propose marriage, you have the purpose then of spending the rest of your life with someone, because you're proposing that you get married. Now, that's a bit of a twist on the definitions, but it's what you propose. Your purpose is what you propose in life. What is it that you want to accomplish, you want to do? List those out. And then I'm going to go on later on how to align things so that you can start to achieve that. That's the lesson for today. I hope you got something out of it. I'll talk to you probably next week. I got to figure out how often I'm going to do these living tips, but I'll do them regularly.